Before we dive in, let me know in the comments what country are you watching from. I'd love to see where our viewers are tuning in from. And if you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. You think you're escaping the world, floating far away in the endless ocean. No noise, no messages, no one to bother you. Just the calm sound of waves, warm sunlight, and laughter all around. But you forget one thing. When no one can reach you, it also means no one can save you. In today's video, these aren't just ghost stories. These are 3 real and terrifying events that happen on luxury cruise ships. Beautiful places meant for joy and peace, but that turned into haunting stages for fear, mystery, and death. The first story is about a young woman who takes a trip to Greece, something her late husband had always dreamed of doing. But once on board, she starts seeing a strange man again and again. Each time, his cold, lifeless eyes lock onto hers, until she realizes his face is the exact same as her husband's, who died 2 years ago. The second story is about a college student who joins a cruise with his friends, only to lose his phone. But even after that, the phone keeps sending location signals from the ship itself. Then comes strange handwritten notes, stolen photos, and soft knocking on his window every night. The ship eventually docks, but his nightmare is just beginning. The third story follows a charming young bartender who loves her job at sea. One night, a mysterious man buys her a drink. She takes a sip and blacks out, waking up later tied up in her cabin, her belongings gone. When the crew searches for the man, they find no record of him. It's as if he was never on board. So turn off your lights, put on your headphones, and remember, out in the middle of the ocean, where no one can hear you scream, fear is the only thing that never floats away. Shelby Duca didn't believe in omens or signs. She believed in plans and emails and blue reminders on her phone that told her what to do next. But after her husband Antonio's death, everything she believed in lost meaning. His death, a sudden motorcycle accident on a narrow mountain road north of Florence, had left her life hollow and gray. People said the usual things. At least he didn't suffer. He lived well. He's in a better place. But nothing they said filled the silence he left behind. 8 years passed, but Shelby still carried that ache in her heart like a wound that wouldn't heal. She had never traveled alone before, never stayed in a hotel without Antonio's laughter in the room. He once told her he wanted to see the sunset in Santorini, drink wine in Mykonos, and get lost in the white streets of Athens. She always said, maybe next summer, but there were no more summers left. On the 8th anniversary of his death, Shelby woke in the dark of her small Florence apartment. Outside, the city was quiet under a gray mist. She stared out the window, then opened her laptop, her hands shaking slightly. She typed, Greek cruise spring. A week later, she booked a ticket with Celebrity Cruise Line. 6 cities, 7 nights. The trip Antonio had always dreamed of. She would take it now, alone. She boarded the ship in Athens wearing a simple white dress and dark sunglasses, trying to disappear into the crowd. Around her, couples laughed, groups chatted, families posed for pictures. She felt like she didn't belong, like a ghost drifting among the living. That first night, as the ship left the port, she sat at the bar, drinking martinis until her sadness blurred into something numb. That's when she saw him. He was sitting at the far end of the bar alone. Long, dark brown hair, an ordinary face, but his expression, cold, motionless, made her skin crawl. He wasn't drinking, not smiling, not talking, just staring. His gaze cut through the noise, through the flickering lights, locking onto her like a silent warning. It wasn't curiosity in his eyes, it was recognition, as if he already knew her, as if he had been waiting. The next morning, Shelby woke with a pounding headache and a hazy memory. In her dream, someone had whispered her name from deep under the ship. The voice came again and again, like waves brushing against wood. Soft, patient, familiar. She blamed the alcohol, the grief, the loneliness. But she couldn't forget that stare from the night before. Those eyes, dark as the ocean, empty as stone. Their first stop was Santorini. The bright white houses, lavender air, and cool wine almost made her forget her fear. She ate alone at a small seaside cafe, bought a few souvenirs, then wandered into a quiet bar at the end of a narrow alley. She told herself she was fine until she saw him again. The same man, same hair, same clothes, same expression, sitting by the lamppost watching her. His gaze didn't move, didn't soften. It was like he knew she'd come here. Shelby's heart thudded in her chest. She looked around, hoping someone else noticed. No one did. The man didn't approach, didn't say a word, just watched. She turned and hurried down the street toward the dock, her palms slick with sweat. When she finally looked back, he was gone. The next day in Ephesus, she tried to convince herself it meant nothing. Just a coincidence, she whispered. She joined a guided tour, drank less, avoided bars, avoided crowds. She didn't see him, not once. But in Mykonos, everything changed again. Shelby sat at a beachside bar as the sunset painted the sky red. She was lost in thought when she felt it, that cold shiver up her back. Someone was behind her. Slowly she turned, and there he was, the same man a few feet away, leaning against a post, staring at her. But this time, something was different. His face looked softer, more familiar, and it hit her like a shock. His eyes looked like Antonio's. Not exactly, but close enough to steal her breath. Her heart raced. She grabbed her bag and left, pushing through the crowd. This time she didn't walk to the ship alone. She found an elderly couple and joined them for the walk back, pretending to smile. That night Shelby double-locked her cabin door, but she couldn't sleep. Every sound of footsteps, creaking metal, waves felt louder, closer. She stared at the curtains, watching the dark ocean outside. Her heart whispered the question she couldn't escape. Who was he, and how did he know where to find her? The next morning her eyes burned from lack of sleep. The ship reached Volos, but she didn't leave. She sat near the passenger exit with cold coffee, scanning every face coming and going. Hours passed. No one looked like him. No long hair, no dark coat, no hollow eyes. Was he even real? The final stop was Thessaloniki. This time Shelby forced herself to step off the ship. She didn't care if she was imagining things. She needed to know. The streets were alive with laughter and the smell of fresh bread. For a moment she felt like herself again, until she saw him. 3 blocks away, standing still in the sunlight. The breeze tugged at his coat. His face was blurred by the light, but she knew it was him. She felt something snap inside. Not fear, but anger. She walked toward him, faster and faster. "Hey!" she shouted. Her voice echoed through the street. He flinched, then turned and ran. She chased him through twisting alleys. Her pulse hammered in her ears. "Stop!" she yelled, but he didn't. He turned a corner and vanished. Shelby stopped, gasping, staring down an empty dead-end street. There was no door, no way out, just a tall brick wall and silence. He couldn't have gone anywhere, but he was gone. She stood there frozen, the city quiet around her. The air felt heavy, almost watching her back. She didn't remember walking to the ship. That night, for the first time in days, she slept deeply, too tired to dream. But when Shelby returned to Florence, she couldn't rest. She turned on her laptop and searched online, typing anything that might lead to an answer. There were no names, no clear clues, only one haunting question. Who was he? And then she saw it, a missing persons listing that made her blood run cold. The photo loaded slowly, the face coming into focus, the long brown hair, the distant, lifeless eyes. It was him. His name was written clearly beneath the photo. Antonio Rosi, the same name as her husband. Shelby's breath caught as she scrolled down to read more. The man had vanished after a small boat accident off the coast of Paros, Greece. The file said the body had been recovered. The case closed only a month before her trip. The date of death, April 29th, the exact same day her husband had died, but 2 years apart. Shelby froze, her hands trembling over the keyboard. It felt like the ground beneath her had cracked open. She called the police immediately, explaining everything she had seen, the encounters, the locations, the times. The dispatcher went silent for a few seconds before asking in a hesitant voice, "Are you sure about the name?" Shelby whispered, "Yes, that man is dead." When she hung up, she couldn't remember if she had cried or just sat shaking. For the next several days, she tried to explain it to herself. A ghost, her mind playing tricks, maybe just a cruel coincidence. But none of those ideas made sense, because she remembered the way he looked at her, the way he always appeared where she went, the way he made her feel watched, even in a crowd. It had all been too real. And then there was something else she couldn't ignore. The only place she hadn't seen him was in Ephesus, and that was the only city not in Greece. It was in Turkey, a country Antonio had never wanted to visit. Months later in July, Shelby attended her niece's wedding in Athens. For the first time since the cruise, she felt almost normal again. The reception was bright, filled with laughter, music, and clinking glasses. She stood at the bar, raising her glass to toast the bride, when her body suddenly went cold. In the mirror behind the bar, she saw him, the same man, the same long hair and dark coat, standing far behind her, head slightly tilted, watching her through the reflection. No one else seemed to see him. No one turned around, only her. Her heart pounded, but she didn't scream. She didn't run. She just set her drink down, turned away from the bar, and walked out into the warm night air. That was the last time Shelby ever returned to Greece. Devin always thought a cruise would fix everything. After a stressful semester, she and her three best friends, Taylor, Tao, and Messina, booked a Bahamas cruise to celebrate being young, free, and unstoppable. The huge Carnival ship left New York one golden morning, sunlight glittering across the water like shards of glass. The girls wore bright bikinis, drank fruity cocktails, and laughed endlessly as they posed for selfies. Their phones were filled with hashtags like "We're Bahamas vibes," as if life itself was a perfect highlight reel. But beneath the smiles, a small tension simmered. Devin and Taylor had never really gotten along. Taylor was quiet, guarded, and moody. Devin was loud, confident, and playful. She teased Taylor often, and everyone laughed, except Taylor. On the first night at Paradise Island, they were already drunk, dancing wildly in a beach bar under neon lights. Devin held 2 cocktails, one for her and one for Messina, and left her phone on the counter to take a few selfies. When they finally left to walk back to the ship, she reached into her bag and froze. Her phone was gone. Panic spread through her. It wasn't just about losing the device, it was her whole life in there. Photos, passwords, messages, family contacts. Tears blurred her eyes as her friends tried to calm her down. But the strangest part came later that night. When she opened her laptop to check the tracker, the phone's signal wasn't on the island. It was still on the ship. Devin barely slept. She lay awake in her cabin, staring at the blinking green dot on the screen. Her phone's location, somewhere nearby. The soft sound of waves outside the window felt too quiet, almost listening. The next morning, she went to the lost and found desk, hoping someone had turned it in. The crew member shrugged and said, "Someone probably kept it." Devin walked away uneasy, her chest tight with something more than worry. That afternoon, she checked again. The green dot was right where she stood, at the front of the ship. She looked up slowly, scanning the deck. 10 people around her, some laughing, some staring. One of them had her phone. One of them was watching. When she told her friends, Messina gasped. Tao went pale, but Taylor only smiled faintly, like it was funny. That look made Devin's stomach twist. Later that evening, they went to the arcade at the far end of the ship, a dim room filled with old machines and flickering lights. Devin opened her laptop again. The green dot was right beside her. She turned to Taylor, anger burning in her chest. "Enough! Where's my phone?" Taylor rolled her eyes. "If you're careless, don't blame me," Devin shouted back, the argument echoing through the arcade. She made Taylor empty her pockets, her bag, nothing. Taylor smirked. "Happy now?" Devin ran out in tears. That night, she locked herself in her cabin, staring at her screen. The dot kept moving, slowly, deliberately, like whoever had her phone was still nearby. For the next 2 days, Devin stayed in her room, leaving only when she had to. Every time she checked, the dot was somewhere different. By the pool, the dining hall, the spa. It wasn't hiding, it was following. Then on the final night, she came back to find a white envelope slipped under her door. Her heart froze. Inside, a note written in shaky blue ink. "I see you. You're so pretty. I found your phone. I like your pictures. I want to see you when no one else is around. No name, just a crooked B. Devon ran straight to the security office, shaking as she handed them the letter. The officer barely looked concerned. Probably a prank, he said. Without proof, there's nothing we can do. She screamed that someone was stalking her, but no one listened. When she got back to her cabin, the dot was gone. Hours later, as she tried to rest, she heard paper sliding under her door again. Another envelope. Inside was a photo of her, taken on the island, from behind. Devon didn't sleep that night. She kept her laptop on, the glow reflecting in her wide, frightened eyes. When the ship finally docked in New York, she thought it was over. But deep down, she knew it wasn't. Back home in New Jersey, she changed her number, bought a new phone, deleted her accounts. Her family told her it was all over. Her friends said it was just bad luck. But one rainy night, while watching TV, she opened her laptop and checked the tracker, just to be sure. The green dot was back, and it was inside her house. Devon screamed for her father. They both ran toward the backyard, rain pouring hard, the dog barking wildly. A tall, thin figure with long hair was climbing the fence. Her father shouted and fired a warning shot. The figure fell, scrambled, and vanished into the darkness. Behind the house, they found a ladder propped against Devon's window. On the wood frame, deep knife marks. He had been cutting through the lock. The police came, but the man was gone. Devon never saw his face. Her data was stolen, her photos, her passwords, her life. Even now, 3 months later, she's still afraid. She moved, changed her name online, and keeps her curtains closed. But every time she gets a letter with no name, or hears a quiet knock at night, she freezes, because some people don't need to show up to make you afraid. They just need your name, your picture, and a stolen phone. For Elise, working as a bartender on a cruise ship wasn't just a job, it was a dream. At 25, with a bright smile and years of experience in Chicago's best bars, she got hired by Royal Caribbean without much effort. A 12-day voyage from Miami to Portugal and Spain felt like a perfect reward for all her hard work. On her first day aboard, Elise was enchanted. Soft music played, tourists laughed, cocktails shimmered under the sun. She loved listening to stories from travelers, learning about their lives. Every face was a small piece of a bigger picture, but one face didn't fit. A man named Sebastian, or at least that's what he said, appeared on the second night. He was tall, maybe in his 30s, with pale blue eyes that looked frozen. He wasn't like the usual loud, drunken guests. He drank slowly, never got drunk, and sat in silence for hours at the bar, watching. Elise always tried to be kind, even when people were quiet or strange. So when Sebastian first sat at her bar, she didn't think much of it. He was polite, soft-spoken, and never caused trouble. But what made her uneasy was how his eyes never left her, not once. On the fourth night, he began to open up, talking about his wife, Sasha, who had cheated on him with his best friend Charles. The way he told the story made Elise's stomach twist. He knew every detail, names, places, dates, as if he was reliving it instead of retelling it. Elise listened quietly, feeling sorry for him. She didn't realize then that her sympathy was about to pull her straight into something dark. When he whispered, "You're the reason I didn't jump off the ship last night," she just smiled softly, thinking it was a sad, harmless line. But the look in his eyes wasn't sad. It was hollow, endless, like something deep beneath the sea was staring back through him. Elise had never felt so watched, so completely seen, and it made her heart pound with a mix of fear and pity. Each night, Sebastian came to the same spot, the third stool from the left, near the liquor shelf. He didn't laugh or shout like the others. He just sat there quietly, drinking slowly, and no one else ever sat near him. It was as if an invisible cold surrounded him, pushing everyone away. Even though her instincts warned her to stay distant, Elise felt drawn to him. She knew heartbreak too well. She had been left before, without reason or goodbye, and something about Sebastian's lonely eyes made her think he carried the same kind of pain. On the fifth night, just before closing, he surprised her by sliding a drink across the counter. "Thank you," he said gently. Elise hesitated. Crew members weren't supposed to take drinks from guests. but his calm smile disarmed her. The drink smelled faintly of mint. Nothing strange. After a few sips, though, her head began to spin. The lights blurred, her legs weakened, and the floor tilted like the world had dropped out beneath her. Elise tried to call for help, but her voice never came out. Then darkness. When she opened her eyes again, she was staring at the ceiling of her own cabin. But something wasn't right. The room looked destroyed, drawers pulled out, things scattered everywhere. Her wrists were tied tightly with bed sheets. A rag filled her mouth. Her pulse roared in her ears. She kicked, twisted, pulled until her skin burned. But the knots wouldn't loosen. Then, a knock. The door opened. Cleaning staff screamed. Elise had been missing for over 24 hours. They freed her, and she collapsed in tears. But Sebastian was gone. He never showed up again. And when the ship reached the next port, his name wasn't even on the manifest. He had simply vanished, taking her phone, wallet, and jewelry with him. No one could explain how he'd gotten into her locked cabin. Later, security footage revealed something even stranger. He had left the ship at Ponta Delgada before she had even lost consciousness. It was impossible. Royal Caribbean wanted to keep things quiet. They offered Elise a settlement and asked her not to speak about what had happened. She didn't argue. She just wanted to forget. But forgetting wasn't easy. The questions haunted her. How could a man with a valid ID, passport, and booking record vanish like smoke? When the police checked his information, everything was real. But the address was empty, the phone disconnected, the bank account closed. It was like Sebastian had never existed, a ghost who boarded with the tide and left nothing but fear behind. Elise returned to Chicago, hoping to rebuild her life. She tried to bury the memories, the name, the face, but it didn't stay buried for long. A month later, an unmarked envelope slid under her apartment door. Inside was a single photo, Elise walking out of a grocery store. It had been taken from behind, just far enough to catch her face in the reflection of a car window. Her heart stopped. A week later came another envelope, another photo. This time she was sitting in a cafe, reading a book, completely unaware. The angle was familiar, too familiar. The person taking the pictures was close, watching her the same way he had back on the ship. Elise ran to the police. They wrote a report, nodded, and sent her home. Probably just a prank, one officer muttered. She begged them to check his background again, and they did. The name, the ID, the job, everything checked out, yet none of it was real. The apartment he'd supposedly lived in was empty. The landlord said he moved out a month ago, left behind a blank room, stripped of everything, not even dust on the floor. Elise's stomach churned. Nothing made sense. That night, while she lay awake, she heard a faint knock. Not on her door, on her window. She froze. She lived on the third floor. Slowly, she turned toward the sound. Her heart hammered as she crept closer and pulled back the curtain. No one was there, but on the glass was a clear handprint, large, wet, and fresh. Taped beside it was a small, wrinkled note written in shaky letters. "You drank the drink I made. You are mine." Elise's scream caught in her throat. She called the police again, and when they arrived, they searched the building. No one was found. But outside, below her window, muddy footprints marked the railing of the floor beneath her. Someone had climbed up, calmly, quietly, waiting. Elise didn't even pack her things. She left that night, never looked back, changed her number, her job, her life. She deleted every trace of herself online and moved to a small town in Oregon where no one knew her name. Her new life was quiet, lonely, but safe, or so she thought. She worked days, came home before dark, and checked every lock 3 times each night. She bought security cameras and kept a folding knife under her pillow. But no matter how careful she was, the fear never left. Some nights, she would swear she heard footsteps outside her door or soft breathing behind her as she brushed her teeth. One rainy evening, while washing her face, she looked up at the bathroom mirror and froze. Behind her reflection in the doorway was a faint, shadowy figure. She spun around, but the room was empty. Every door still locked, every window sealed. Her pulse thudded in her ears. Maybe she was imagining it. Maybe her mind still wasn't free. But the next morning, she found a small, unmarked package in her mailbox. Inside was a single glass tumbler, the kind used at the Royal Caribbean bar. Her hands shook as she lifted it. At the bottom, faint marker writing curved along the glass. "I miss your smile. Don't make me have to look again." Elise dropped it, the sound shattering through the quiet house. She sank to the floor, tears streaming down her face, because now she knew. She could move, change her name, erase her past, but he would always find her. There's no hiding from someone who doesn't need a reason, just an obsession. And once you've shared a drink with the devil, no ocean is wide enough to save you.